Hello, everyone. We will regularly bring you stories you like. Kevin Chandler sat on the couch staring at his phone until Lily, his wife of nearly 10 years, called with frightening news. Previously, a private investigator had exposed Lily's deception. Despite what she claimed she and her partner were on their way to Honolulu, Kevin reflected on his naivety after devoting a decade to their love, which had been wrecked by her falsehoods. He reclined and gulped his coffee, reflecting on their background. They met in college 13 years ago. While both pursuing business degrees, their romance flourished, culminating in marriage after graduation. Kevin joined his father's tire company, where he excelled in numerous roles until becoming the head of the accounting department. He wanted to inherit the company from his father and succeed. Mike Allen, the departing CFO Lily, continued a job as a realtor after marriage, and she excelled even amid difficult market conditions. They lived nicely with a great home and new cars. They appeared to be secure in their marriage, despite the fact that they had no children. He considered it a blessing. Lily initially discussed fertility concerns and decided to have tubal ligation. Despite being offered adoption, she declined. Her increased social engagements, particularly her late arrival's home, have recently raised his suspicions despite his misgivings. She rejected them and blamed her absences on work stress. "Why were you out so late?" he inquired as she got home one night. Unkempt and smelling of cigarettes on her clothes, she responded defensively. "I'm just hanging out and drinking a few." "Kevin, it's my business. I can care for myself." Kevin was taken aback by her tone, which was different from her typical demeanor. She softened in response to his reaction. "I apologize, Kevin." She apologized. "It's just work-related stress getting to me." "Have you ever dealt with market pressures without this?" He pointed out what has changed. She said that it's tougher than ever out there. "Competition is stiff, and the pressures are merciless." "I got it. But do not take it out on me," he reassured her. "I am on your side." She hugged him, expressing remorse. "You're correct, sweetie, I apologize." "I agreed, but please freshen up." He requested. "You smell of smoke, sorry." It was smoky at the club. She conceded and went to take a shower. She joined him in bed after he had already fallen asleep. Their intimacy faded with time, from many times per week to only once every 2 weeks. Her interest in his life decreased, and he became aware of her blatant lies. He didn't challenge her on the day she claimed to be at the workplace when she wasn't sensing her potential explosive reaction. He wondered how many more falsehoods she could have told. He glanced at her while lying awake next to her. His concern was clear. "What is on your mind, Kevin?" she inquired. "I am worried," he admits. "What is this about?" She probed us. He confessed. "It feels like we're drifting apart." "Do you still love me?" "Of course, sweetie." She soothed him by embracing him. "Do you know that I honestly do not know?" he confessed. "It's been a while since you mentioned it. Our intimacy has diminished. You spend more time outside than inside your home." "I apologize." She apologized. "Work has been overwhelming. I love you. Please trust me. Could you show me more?" He requested. "Of course, sweetie," she said, kissing him. They made love that night. Kevin's anxieties were briefly alleviated, but fears persisted. A month passed, and the cycle continued. Kevin began to suspect something deeper. One day his pal Ron requested an urgent meeting. "Sure, let him get a beer." Kevin agreed. "I can explain over the phone." Ron insisted. They met at a bar. When Ron dropped a surprise, "I saw your wife today." Ron disclosed. "Yeah, she works in real estate, showing houses." Kevin shrugged. "I'm positive," Ron said, "but I had never idea real estate required such proximity seriously." Kevin exclaimed, "You must be kidding. I wished I was." Ron sighed. "I saw Lily and another man holding hands and kissing. It was not an innocent act. That cannot be correct." Kevin protested. Are you certain it was Lily? Ron showed him a photo that confirmed his suspicions. Damn, Kevin muttered, requesting a copy of the photo. Sure thing. Ron agreed and sent it over. What is your plan? I am at a loss. Kevin admitted this surprised me. My friend's API, Ron offered. Do you want me to connect you? Please do. Kevin requested I need answers. After parting ways, Kevin discovered Lily at home. You returned early? He asked, surprised. Just on time? She smiled. Where were you having a drink with Ron? He explained. Is everything okay with your friend? Not really. Kevin revealed that his wife has been unfaithful. Lily pretended innocence. Yeah. Kevin responded. It is a nightmare. I'm relieved we don't have Lily's reaction. Did not escape. Kevin's attention. It would crush me if you betrayed me, he commented. Noting her subtle flinch, I would never betray you. She reassured him by embracing him. I love you too much. I'm glad to hear it, he replied, by kissing her. What brings you home early? Our company's convention begins this weekend. She explained I wanted to pack early and spend time with you before we parted. Where is it held? He inquired. Las Vegas at Westgate Resort Hotel. She answered. We leave Friday after lunch. Is there another award this year? He inquired. Aware of her previous achievements, I suppose, she replied. They kissed again, and he suggested they spend their anniversary in Vegas. She declined, citing work commitments. Disappointed, he agreed to celebrate later. The next day he asked Ron for a pie commendation. Before lunch he met with the investigator. Good morning, Mr. Chandler. The investigator welcomed him into his cluttered office. I'm glad to meet you, Ron greeted. Call me Jerry. What is the deal? Kevin informed him about Lily's Vegas trip. Jerry mused about Vegas. Do you think she is up to something? There could be, Kevin admitted. I have contacts there who owe me favors. Jerry offered. We'll keep track of her and can set up surveillance if you give me the room number. It will cost extra. Did you expect as much? Kevin nodded, but I need the truth. Jerry handed him the digital audio recorder, easy to use. Simply slip it under her car seat, voice activated, and retrieve it later. She usually parks in the airport. Kevin observed. Perfect. Jerry nodded. We will handle it. If she makes a mistake, we will be aware of it. Here's my private line for updates. Thanks. Kevin replied, taking the number. Thanks. Kevin explained, writing a check from his personal account. Not the joint one. They maintained separate personal accounts and agreed to contribute up to 10% of their earnings. Kevin usually spent his money on clothes and gifts for Lily, but he was saving up for a cruise. Until now, Lily spent the night packing for her trip. Kevin offered assistance after noticing her excessive luggage. Curious. He peeked inside and discovered birth control pills, despite her previous claim to two-ball liation. He photographed her belongings, noticing clubwear and revealing bikinis, including an open micro bikini. He had never seen her before, but he had discreetly placed an audio recorder in her car and made sure it was turned on before locking up. This might be the final time. Kevin was saddened to see their closeness as husband and wife fading. Lily gave me her hotel room number the next morning and promised to call me every night. Love you, she said this while kissing him. He replied, I love you too, while watching her drive away from work. He informed Jerry of Lily's room number. I get it, thanks. Jerry acknowledged and prepared to deploy his team. Lily later called from the airport to give him an update check. In love you. She reiterated, I love you too, baby. He echoed internally, concealing his doubts when his father approached. Sensing his distress, Kevin confided in him. That's rough, son, his father sympathized. I'd never have guessed same here. Dad, Kevin agreed. We are available if you need us. His father offered. Thank you, Dad. Kevin appreciated leaving work early. He found Lily's car at the airport, retrieving the audio recorder. Despite the tidy car, doubt lingered on the drive home. Lily called, "Hey, just got here." She informed him. "Thanks for telling me," he acknowledged, just settling in. She continued, "I'll call you tonight. Love you." "I love you too," he reciprocated at home. Home, he activated the audio recorder, hoping for nothing incriminating. Mostly, there was road noise and her radio halfway through. However reality hit, he listened to her conversation via Bluetooth. "Hey, baby," a man's voice greeted. "Hello, stallion," she flirted a stud muffin. Kevin scoffed internally. "Who's this clown last week? Was amazing." The man reminisced. "Glad you enjoyed it?" She giggled. "Plans for next week?" "Already arranged," he confirmed. "Did you tell your husband not yet?" She admitted. "I've got it handled. He suspect anything?" The man inquired. "Nothing," she assured. HEK clueless. "Hope you're right," he said. "He'll believe anything," she boasted. "Okay," he conceded. Pulling up to the airport, she announced, "See you at the hotel tonight." "Okay. Can't wait," he replied. "Bye, love, bye-bye," she concluded, ending the call. Kevin stared at the tape recorder. Shocked by what he'd heard, he replayed the recording to ensure he hadn't misinterpreted. She wasn't just cheating. She had plans for their anniversary week that didn't involve him. Frustrated, he cursed internally and pondered the duration of her affair and who her partner was grabbing a beer. He sat at his desk, contemplating recent events. Had he overlooked obvious signs? He questioned what else she might be concealing. He had respected her privacy, but now felt compelled to investigate where she kept the key. He retrieved it from their jewelry box and headed to her office in the spare bedroom. He accessed the desk, driven by betrayal, to investigate inside. He uncovered a web of lies. Lily had deceived him throughout their marriage. Shockingly, her personal account held over 250s, far exceeding their agreed-upon savings limit. Examining her expenses, he found lavish gifts, including a pricey men's Rolex watch, likely for her lover. Her purchases also revealed expensive clothing and visits to Planned Parenthood for feticide, which she paid for in cash. He pondered the paternity of the terminated pregnancies and her consistent use of birth control. Over the years, additionally, he discovered a receipt for Plan B pills purchased just days earlier, and there's more. He found a recent receipt for a hefty down payment on an apartment in an affluent neighborhood, pondering if it would serve as her love nest or an exit strategy. Other receipts revealed payments for utilities and new furniture, prompting him to consider if one of the keys he found was for her new place. Determined to investigate further, he powered up her computer, finding passwords conveniently listed beneath the keyboard. He accessed her email, surprised to find her credentials saved, indicating her confidence in her secrecy. Shockingly, he uncovered exchanges with Greg Wilson, detailing their carnal encounters, dating back nearly a year when he first noticed changes in her behavior. Initially meeting in hotel rooms, they later rendered in houses. She was selling one email from 6 months prior. Provided some answers to his questions. "Did you handle that little issue?" Greg inquired. "Yep," Lily replied. "I went and had a feticide today." "Shame you didn't keep the baby," Greg remarked. "You could have passed it off as Kevin's." "I can't do that." She explained. "He thinks I can't conceive." He'd figure out it wasn't his, reflecting on 6 months ago. Kevin realized that was when he first caught her lying. Damn, he thought to himself. She's a deceitful, cheating woman. He scrolled through their emails. Greg had suggested they have love-making in Lily's marital bed, but she refused. "I won't betray Kevin like that," she wrote to Greg. "That idiot has no clue." He replied, "I won't do it." She insisted. "What if you had your own place?" Greg proposed. "You could afford it, with your earnings and your husband would be clueless. Maybe you're on to something." She replied, "I have my own account, and Kevin never questions it. I'll start looking." That was 3 months ago. The down payment receipt was slightly over a month old. I acquired a condo. She said, "Greg, I paid a down payment, and I'm purchasing furnishings next week." Kevin's oblivious. Perfect Greg reacted, "Wick have fun all over that place." Kevin was surprised by this news. He kept reading the emails. "Why stay with your husband?" Greg asked, "Why not leave and get your grown place?" "Believe it or not, I care for him." Lily replied, "He may be a cocky accountant at a tire store chain, but I have feelings for him and he treats me correctly. I got the condo, so we could meet without risking exposure at hotels, plus you're still married. Hey, just give the word, and I'll dump." Christy Gregg offered check a headache. "Let and see. After the conference," Lily replied. "What happens?" "After the conference." Greg pondered. Kevin started printing Lily's letters and duplicating the receipts he found, as he was doing, so Lily's number showed on the screen. "Hello." He responded carefully. "It's me, baby." Lily was greeted. "Are you okay? You raise your voice?" "I got a throbbing headache." He lied to avoid tipping her off. She explained that she was just settling in for the night. "Take something to relieve the headache and rest. I love you and miss you." She added, "Yeah, same here." He murmured by ending the call. He wondered if she noticed his lack of enthusiasm for words. In reality, he was furious, determined to learn the truth about Greg. He searched Lily's workplace website and discovered him. Greg Wilson is the regional manager. She was indeed working with her supervisor to print the document. He added it to his pile, growing increasingly irritated. He considered breaking into her apartment and checking her address. He paused, thinking about the security mechanism while reviewing her records. He came upon a code called Alarm System. A. Of course, she would write it down, he thought cruelly. As he closed her laptop, he went taking latex gloves from the garage to avoid leaving evidence. He found her complex parked in her place and approached her door. He donned his gloves and tested a key from her jewelry box. The door opened, and he entered when he saw the alarm remote. He entered the code he had discovered and assured that the alarm was disabled. He turned on the light and inspected the apartment. Liking Lily's furnishing selection, she's always had wonderful taste. He thought it's a shame her allegiance does not match her decor preferences as expected. There were no photos of him. It was her love nest, an escape from their marriage. He stepped inside the kitchen and noticed a few plates and cutlery. The refrigerator was empty and the pantry was bare. Surprisingly, the house was fully furnished, decorated with floral portraits, and featured a giant flat-screen TV entering the bedroom. He discovered it was also decorated with lace curtains, cascading gently over the windows directly above the electric heater, which was clearly a fire hazard. He opened drawers and discovered strange underwear. Suspecting Greg's presence for men's undergarments, he pulled out his phone and took photos in the nightstand drawer. A card from Greg verified his fears. Thank you for the watch, which read, "I look forward to your housewarming. Love, Greg Anger." Rose, he considered confronting Greg. More apparel. Both male and female filled the changing room in the master bathroom. He observed 2 toothbrushes at the sink, as well as his and her towels beside the shower. He grabbed his phone and took a couple of more photographs. The second bedroom was furnished with simply a small desk and a chair. A network cable lay on the desk. Most likely for her laptop, among the letters written to her by utility companies, he made sure her name and address were evident in the photos. Lace curtains like those in the bedroom covered the windows and hung over the electric heater. He identified many possible fire concerns, including the lack of smoke alarms in the bedrooms and an old one in the kitchen. He wondered if it even had a battery to certify that everything was exactly as he found it. He turned off the lights, triggered the security system, and exited, double-checking the locked door, returning to his car. He considered his next steps. Divorce was unavoidable. He couldn't trust her again, even if she cut ties with her lover and gave up the flat where males frequently perform poorly. In such situations, he thought that her improved salary would save him from having to pay alimony. It seemed prudent to consult with a lawyer before moving forward. He also hoped that her single ownership of the flat meant he wouldn't have to give up their home or split the sale proceeds. He felt abandoned because she bought the apartment without telling him and had no children. Custody and support were not a problem, but he desired payback for their betrayal. Violence was out of the question. He had no desire to serve jail time. When he returned home, he looked through the phone book and saw an advertisement for Gregory Wilson, thinking it was the same, Greg Wilson. He dialed the number, Wilson inhabitants. A woman's voice responded. "Is this Mrs. Wilson?" he inquired. "Yes," she confirmed. "Who am I talking to?" "Kevin Chandler." He introduced himself. "Your husband is the regional manager for Acme Real Estate?" He verified. "Yes, he is." She answered. "However, he away at a conference this weekend and will be visiting additional offices next week. You will need to call the regional office and leave a message for him." "Actually, Mrs. Wilson, I would like to speak with you." Kevin redirected. She responded, "Yes, ma'am." Kevin continued. "I hate to break it to you, but my wife is having an affair with your husband." "Are you sure?" she inquired. "Absolutely," Kevin asserted, "and I can offer evidence." "Do you have credible proof?" she pressed. "I can even show you where they meet if you want." Kevin offered. He heard her sigh over the phone. "Will tomorrow work for you?" Did she propose? Certainly, Kevin agreed. "What time?" "Best suits you approximately 1 p.m., she advised, giving her Lily's apartment location and directions. Kevin completed. "I will see you then," before terminating the call. He approached his workstation with a smile and started making a to-do list. The first item on the agenda was to change the door locks. And sure that they were done before meeting Greg's wife at Lily's place, he considered drowning his sorrows in alcohol, but he chose a cold pizza slice. Instead, he considered his choices. Satisfied, he climbed the stairs and went to bed early the next day. He went to the hardware store to get supplies to repair the locks and make an extra key for the flat. By midday, all locks had been exchanged. After showering, he grabbed his audio recorder and printed emails from Lily's account before heading to her apartment to meet Greg's wife. After noticing Lily's car, he approached a Toyota Corolla nearby, where an attractive dark-haired woman was knocking on the window. He inquired, "Are you Christy Wilson?" She proved her identity, and he unlocked the door for her. "Call me Kevin Chandler," he said, gesturing for her to wear latex gloves. "Let 'em go in. I'll show you their hideaway with the spare key." He successfully unlocked the door and turned off the security alarm as they entered. Kevin led her into the bedroom, opening drawers to reveal Greg's clothes in the closet. "My God!" she exclaimed. "I've been looking for these for weeks. I wondered where his clothes were going." "Has your husband been wearing a Rolex watch recently?" Kevin inquired. She confirmed, mentioning that it was a gift from management. He shakes his head. Kevin took a card from Lily's nightstand and showed it to her, reading the note. She burst into tears. "Is this his handwriting?" Kevin questioned. "Yes," she sobbed. "But wait, there's more." He continued, displaying the emails and activating the audio recorder. She read the emails with tears before listening to the Friday recording. "I'm sorry," Kevin said, embracing her and controlling his own emotions. It is not your fault, she reassured. I suspected something, but lacked evidence. She faced him after gathering her composure. So what is the plan? She inquired. He declared, I'm filing for divorce, and she promised I'll kick him out. As soon as I lay eyes on him, suddenly she brightened. I've got an idea, she exclaimed. What if we help them move in together here? Kevin pondered briefly before smiling. I like it, he agreed. But we need to act quickly. They'll be back shortly. Greg said he'd be gone for a week. After the convention, she revealed. Lily will probably find a reason to leave as well. Kevin cursed as he recalled the recorded conversation. Damn, you are correct, he admitted. But I want her belongings out of my home fronto. Agreed, she concurred. Meet me back here in 3 hours? That sounds wonderful. Kevin agreed. I will be back or something. I should be back on time. See you then, she said, rising. Kevin looked at her. Impressed by her petite stature and charm, he could not understand why Greg would cheat on her. They left the condo and returned 3 hours later, their cars brimming with the couple's belongings, dumping the bags in the sparsely furnished second bedroom. They didn't worry about breakage because they knew the cheating spouses would spend hours sorting through everything. I don't know about you, but I wasn't particularly careful with his belongings, she remarked. Kevin chuckled. Same here, he admitted to exchanging a high five with her. He made the announcement while looking at her. I don't know about you, but I am hungry. I agree, she agreed. I really want a juicy hamburger, a large cheesy one that sounds perfect. He responded. I know the exact location. Want to join me? My reward, lead the way. She replied. She followed him after he parked and headed to the bar he frequented with Ron. Christy looked at the building skeptically. She questioned the bar. Trust me, he reassured. They have the best burgers here, you'll love it. Okay, she complied. But I hope you're not going to ply me with alcohol and take advantage. He laughed as he reassured her. As tempting as it sounds, I wouldn't do it. He joked. Darn, she joked, laughing. They ordered beers, burgers and fries, and spent the meal exchanging stories about their failed marriages. Their stories shared similarities. Meeting in college, quick marriages, but conflicting desires for children. He asked if she was a CPA. She replied negatively, saying she hoped to pursue it someday. Kevin discussed his professional background, including opportunities in his field. Perhaps we can help each other out if you send me your resume. He suggested, I can certainly accomplish that, Mr. Chandler. She reacted by taking a mouthful of her hamburger. His cell phone rang, and Lily's caller ID flashed. He answered in a bland tone. He greeted. Hello. Lily's voice slurred with alcohol. Got through, hi, baby, she chirped. What are you up to, just getting a burger at the bar? He responded. What up with you? Guess what? She blurted out. I earned the Best Salesman award, she announced before he could answer. Congratulations, he said bluntly. Yes, and they want me to stay in Vegas for the following week to work with their representatives. She continued to fabricate. He had already realized it was a fraud that is excellent news. He pretended enthusiasm. How about our anniversary this Wednesday? He reminded her. I understand, and I am sorry, she apologized. Perhaps we can celebrate next weekend. He told me that I had nothing to worry about. I understand how essential your work is. I don't want you to miss out on a major opportunity. What is that intended to mean? She inquired nothing. He brushed it off. Just that. Our 10-year anniversary comes only once. But I know your job is important to you. Don't get stressed over it. Yes. Work important? But I assumed you would be delighted for me. She exhaled. I am? He insisted. Go work with your agents. I will be all right. I love you, she affirmed. Good, he responded. I agree, bye. He hung up the phone and turned to face Christy. That's it? He informed her. She shook her head, sympathetically. Did she choose Greg over your anniversary? She commented, placing a reassuring hand on his. He fought back tears. A man he barely knew expressed greater worry than his own wife. What a disappointment, I apologize. She offered thanks. He managed to smile. He took Jerry's card and called his private number. Jerry, when the older man answered the phone, he said, "Hello, Kevin Chandler here just spoke with Lily, and she says she will be in Vegas for another week, and you aren't buying it." Jerry inquired, "Not for 1 second." Kevin confirmed, "I was just working on your report, but I'll have my men watch them and see what happens." Jerry continued, "We can proceed." The conference ended a few hours ago, and they appeared to be enjoying themselves. Most attendees will be leaving tomorrow. Your wife and her partner spent yesterday night together. I have some film that you might be interested in seeing. I'll email it to you along with my report. That would be amazing. Jerry Kevin acknowledged. Thanks. I'm hanging up the phone. He turned to Christy. He said, "We'll get to the bottom of this tomorrow. My pie caught the two lovers spending the night together. He's sending us some video footage. Would you like to watch it with me?" "Not particularly," she admitted, "but I believe I should." Understandingly, he nodded. "So let's go to my apartment," he advised, getting up after paying the bill. At the bar, they left for his residence. The video arrived in his inbox after he had arrived and settled into his office. "Do you want a drink before we start?" he offered. "Sure," she accepted the cola. "If you have it." "I'll get 2 Cokes," he agreed, going to the kitchen and returning with cold drinks. He started the DVD, and they watched Lily and Greg perform different carnal activities. Christy and Kevin tried to control their feelings as they watched their spouses enjoy each other's company. The subsequent pillow discussion was much more painful. "What do you think our wives are up to now?" Lily inquired if I know Christy. "She's probably watching one of her doll movies," Greg responded, "or knows deep within one of her silly books." "Yes, I get what you mean." She agreed. "I guess Kevin is engrossed in another one of his laborious spreadsheets or poring through stock data." Greg smirked. "Do you believe he's out here saving the world or something? I mean, come on, for crying out loud. His father's company sells tires. What is the big deal? So what are you going to tell that idiot after tomorrow's awards banquet?" "Yes," she confirmed. "I'll just say I was asked to stay in Vegas for a week, filling in for the local reps. He will swallow it. Hell, he'll believe anything I say. I could tell him that the moon is made of green cheese, and he would buy it. And by the time he realizes it, we'll be relaxing on a beach in Hawaii." Greg added, "I can't wait to see you in that new sling bikini you got." "Christy erupted Hawaii," she exclaimed. "That idiot is whisking a Floy off to Hawaii. I'm going to rip his guts out." She turned to Kevin. "I apologize for calling your wife a Floy." "No need to apologize," he said. "I would say the same thing." They refocused on the video. "So how about your anniversary? Are you going to skip it? Hawaii sounds far more appealing than a night at the steakhouse." She remarked, "I promised to make it up to him. Perhaps I will, perhaps I won't." Greg looked at Hero. "Ice cold?" "You know?" He said. She shrugged. "It's only our 10th anniversary." She said, "There will be more. Who cares about that right now? I need you with those comments." They resumed their activity, leading Kevin to stop the video. "I've seen a lot," he stated. "Have you?" Christy nodded. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "More than plenty," she confirmed. "I'm meeting with a divorce attorney on Monday," he revealed. "Would you like to join me? Do you mind?" she asked quietly. "Not at all," he reassured Christy, burst into tears crying. Kevin threw his arm over her, offering a soothing shoulder. Despite feeling the urge to cry himself, he held back, trying to console her, despite his own personal agony. Would you mind if I spent the night here? She inquired. No hanky or panky, I just want a cuddle, she clarified. Of course you're welcome to stay, he said. Stay as long as you want. Thank you. She explained. I can't believe I wasted so many years with that imbecile all this time. I've been believing his falsehoods. I completely get it. Kevin empathized. He led her upstairs to the master bedroom and discovered an old T-shirt that appeared to be long enough for her to sleep in. Taking it, she went to the toilet to change as she waited for her return. He put on his pajamas and got into bed. She emerged from the restroom in the long T-shirt, and he was taken aback by her appearance. He always adored Lily's legs, but Christie's were the most slim he'd seen. She smiled as she went under the blankets. What is wrong? She asked. I had never seen a woman's legs before. None are as beautiful as yours. Kevin complimented sweet talk will get you anywhere, sir. She teased. He wrapped his arm over her, bringing her close and inhaling her aroma. She placed her hand on his chest and snuggled into him. Did you realize you're the only lady I've shared a bed with, other than my wife? For over 10 years, he confessed, and you're the only man I've ever been with. Save my spouse, she revealed. They stared into each other's eyes for what seemed like an eternity before falling asleep in each other's arms the next morning. They awoke intertwined. Good morning. Sleepyhead, she said. You do not have to rush out on my account, she added as he stood to use the restroom. Good morning, gorgeous, he replied. I will be quick. He emptied himself in the restroom, which proved difficult considering his frightened state of arousal. When he returned, he found Christie already cleaning up the kitchen and making scrambled eggs and bacon for breakfast. He glanced at the clock and noticed that it was 8:30 a.m. His gaze returned to Christ, relishing the image of her cooking in his old T-shirt and briefly recalling how Lily used to make breakfast for them. Wow, that smells amazing, he said. I hope you don't mind my taking over your kitchen? She added, not at all. He reassured her. I can't remember the last time someone made me breakfast. Lily has never cooked for you, she inquired. She used to be acknowledged, but she stopped a while ago claiming it took too long, and she needed to prepare for her clients. Damn, Christie murmured. Exactly. He concurred. The aroma of bacon filled the air as she set a large platter in front of him. He ate the food hungrily, as if he hadn't eaten in weeks. Wow, that was great. Do you cook like this every morning whenever I can? She responded, his phone interrupted, displaying Jerry's name and number. Hello, Jerry, he greeted. Working on Sundays now. Jerry chuckled more frequently than I would like. He admits I wanted to give you an update. Your wife and her lover boarded their flight from Las Vegas shortly before 6 a.m. They had a 40-minute layover in Los Angeles before taking off. An hour ago, they'll arrive in Honolulu in around 5 hours. I have the flight information if you need it. I get it. Kevin confirmed they are aboard American Airlines, Flight 31. Jerry said, I have a contact in Honolulu who will track them once they land. Thank you, Jerry, Kevin said, scribbling down the details. After hanging up the phone, he turned to Christie. Well, he began. Here's an update. They are en route to Hawaii. Lily took her seat as the jet began to ascent. She looked out the window and watched them fly over the Pacific Ocean. This is it, she murmured to herself, looking to her left. Greg was already asleep on the seat next to hers. She closed her eyes briefly, reflecting on the previous decade, and brief feelings of guilt washed over her for betraying her trusting husband deep down. She knew this was just another bad decision. However, she justified it to herself. She hoped everything would be resolved without Kevin ever finding out. Perhaps their marriage would last, and they would grow old together before retiring peacefully. Her first mistake was admitting to Kevin that she couldn't conceive in actuality. She was capable, but she had no desire for a family motherhood. May entice some, but not her. Thus, she notified Kevin of alleged medical obstacles that required tubal liation. He accepted and eventually agreed. However, difficulties with the IUD emerged, prompting her to quit use due to pelvic discomfort and headaches. She turned to traditional birth control pills, supplemented with the calendar rhythm approach to prevent physical activity during peak fertility. Despite being generally effective, she became pregnant twice. The first incident occurred with her husband, and she was afraid that his reaction would reveal her earlier deception and reluctance to become a parent. She secretly underwent a feticide, which she privately funded. Fortunately, they had set up separate accounts beside a combined one. Initially, they agreed that she would contribute 10% of her earnings to the joint account, but she exploited the arrangement. She may have funded the feticide. Without Kevin's knowledge, Greg experienced a second pregnancy. She told her paramour about the issue about 6 months ago and chose another feticide this time, paying for it out of her personal money. I hoped Kevin would remain oblivious. Then she had adulterous affairs. She remained loyal to her spouse for the first years of their marriage. However, things changed one day when she met a client who was incredibly gorgeous and wealthy. In an instant, she took a decision she would never regret. They had intense, passionate intimacy within the constraints of a luxurious house she was displaying, and he expressed gratitude by purchasing the property outright. Such interactions were infrequent, perhaps 10 times over the next year and a half, but she learned others engaging in similar behaviors. Despite her short shame, she reasoned, what the heck if other women could indulge without consequences? Why couldn't she? She believed it had nothing to do with Kevin. Her love for him remained unwavering, and he would not be hurt by what he did not understand. Then she met Greg, and everything changed. He represented everything her spouse lacked. Kevin was analytical and precise in his decision-making. Greg was impulsive and made decisions on a whim. Kevin's path in life, both personally and professionally, was predetermined. He committed his career to his father's tire company, rising through the ranks to become CFO and eventually President and CEO. Greg, on the other hand, lacked certainty about his future. He lived in the present moment, embracing each day as it came. Whereas Kevin thought about the future, their methods in bed were very different. Kevin prioritized her enjoyment, whilst Greg was more forceful, leaving her feeling devastated initially. Their liaisons took place in quiet motels or properties that they sold, but she became concerned about being discovered and informing Kevin or Greg's wife, Christy. Then, after Kevin expressed reservations about their connection, she distanced herself from Gregory. She temporarily redirected her affection toward her husband. However, her determination eroded, and Greg attempted to reconcile. But she was afraid Kevin would uncover their romance. To reduce this risk, she opted to buy her own apartment, creating a private sanctuary for herself and Greg. Despite Kevin's traditional exterior, she had residual feelings for him. Their decision to file separate tax returns eased her separation from Greg while still benefiting from tax savings. It felt like a win-win situation. Or so she told herself. These incidents resulted in her decision to spend a week in Hawaii with Greg, hiding her absence from work as a vacation with her spouse following their company conference. Greg also notified his wife of his forthcoming travel plans in a recurring occurrence. She fooled Kevin by claiming a week-long trip to Vegas. He was confident that he would trust all she said. Although she lamented missing their 10th wedding anniversary, she promised to compensate upon her return, keeping her secret safe. She grinned as she looked at the beautiful sea beneath them, her thoughts going to Hawaii. Greg had bought a daring open bikini for the trip. I'm excited to see her undress and enjoy herself on the beach. The thought sparked excitement in her thighs, enticing her to give in to the desire right away. Consider a covert bathroom review. Later, she checked her phone, partly anticipating a message from Kevin. She was not surprised by his penchant for phone conversations or in-person interactions. A sneer appeared on her lips, and a slight shudder and change in engine pitch hinted at turbulence as the plane dropped. The engine's changed tone. Dread crept in. Looking out the window, she recognized the gravity of the situation. Panic ensued in the cabin. Gravity pressed her into her seat. The view outside verified their plunge. God, she thought, resignation flooded her. This is it. We are heading down. I am going to die. Oxygen masks were deployed, and passengers yelled as flight attendants prepped them for the coming tears. She took a final look at her phone, bracing herself for one last decision. Kevin and Christy finished breakfast, putting away the rest of the dishes before returning to the table to discuss about their unfaithful partners. Kevin liked Krista's analytical abilities and felt a newfound closeness with her that Lily had lacked for months. He returned to the table with a fresh cup of coffee. His phone rang, displaying Lily's name and number and placing it on speaker. He responded to Lily's terrified voice amid background cacophony and distant cries. "Kevin," she yelled, barely heard among the pandemonium. "Aaron, what's going on?" he inquired, straining to hear the plane land. "Sorry," her voice cracked. Before the connection was abruptly terminated, Kevin and Christy exchanged stunned glances. Attempting to call Lily back resulted in a voicemail message. Kevin turned to Christy and persuaded her to contact Greg. Rushing about retrieving her phone from her purse, Christy phoned Greg's number, but it also went unanswered, redirecting to voicemail. Kevin went to his home office and turned on his computer to look up additional information. After obtaining the airline's phone number through a search engine, he contacted them, and after an initial refusal, spoke with someone who confirmed they were looking into claims of the plane accident, leaving his and Christ's contact information along with Lily and Greg. He was told that they would be alerted if there were any updates, and there was nothing else to locate online. He predicted that it would take at least an hour before they heard any news. They went to the front room and turned on the TV, hoping to catch any news updates. Kevin scanned across channels, but there was no breaking news about the events leading up to this point. He glanced at his phone. Finally, a news reported that an American Airlines flight destined for Honolulu had crashed in the Pacific Ocean, but did not provide any specifics. God, Christy exclaimed, hand covering her mouth. Kevin held her and silently prayed for Lily's safety. Despite the hardship on his marriage, he couldn't handle the prospect of her death. 1 hour later, the phone rang. Kevin turned off the TV and addressed Mr. Chandler. A female voice queried, "Speaking." He confirmed, "I'm calling to let you know that your wife's flight has crashed." She relayed, "I have no other information at this moment, but we will notify you as soon as we hear more. Thank you." Kevin responded and ended the call. He and Christy held each other, tears fill up in their eyes. Christy's phone phoned shortly after carrying the same bad news. Shortly later, his father called. It was not unusual. His parents frequently contacted him when they received such news. His father greeted. "Hello, Dad. How are you?" Kevin responded. "Just returned from church." "Have you seen the news about the accident?" his dad inquired. "Yes, I did." Kevin confirmed, "It's dreadful." His father lamented by the way. "How is Lily? Wasn't she on the way back from Vegas?" "She's not doing well, Father." Kevin revealed she was on the plane that crashed. What his father gasped. "What was she doing traveling to Hawaii without you?" "She was with her boyfriend." Kevin disclosed, "My God." His dad reacted. "I am sad to hear that, son. Take a week off to figure things out. Let Mike know if there is anything we can do. Just call me Okay, thank you, Dad. Kevin expressed gratitude. He ended the call, his thoughts racing with a variety of feelings. On the one hand, he was deeply saddened to learn that Lily had most certainly died. However, he was angry at both her betrayal and at himself for not standing up to her strangely. The absence of divorce did not bother him, however, realizing that he would be responsible for Lily's final costs, including the flat, startled him. Damn, he mumbled. He looked at Christy, wondering how she would react. What steps will she take? He had an idea and decided to approach her. Christy, he continued, why don't you sell your apartment and move here with me? She met his gaze, tears welling in her eyes. Are you serious? She questioned. Absolutely. He said, there is a spare room above, and with the upcoming challenges, perhaps we can help each other through it all. After a moment of thought, she replied, why not only under one condition? What is that? He inquired. Is it true that I share your bed? She stated. Really, Kevin's thoughts raced as he realized things were moving faster than expected. He dismissed his doubts and resolved to seize the moment. Yes, he agreed. It's been a long time since I felt truly comfortable with my husband. Last night was the first time in years that I felt satisfied. Is that okay? That is more than satisfactory, he reassured her. Then it's settled. She confirmed, I'll grab my belongings from home and return tonight. Kevin nodded. I will be here, he promised. After she left, he called Lucy, Lily's colleague. Hello. She greeted Lucy. It's Kevin Chandler. He identified himself. Hello, Kevin. She responded, how is it in Hawaii? I'm not sure. He admitted, I hear it's beautiful this time of year. While Lucy's tone shifted, Lily mentioned that you two were going there after the company meeting. I assumed you were en route, actually. Kevin clarified Lily left, but not with me. She went with Greg. What Lucy is taken aback, that's correct, Kevin stated, but neither of them made it. Their plane crashed in the Pacific Ocean today. You may have seen it in the news. Well, no. Lucy gave a gasp. Do you know whether she survived? I doubt that any of them did. Kevin replied solemnly, I am deeply sorry. Lucy expressed sympathy. Kindly accept my condolences. In addition, the company provides life insurance to all employees. I'll handle the paperwork, but I'll need details from the airline. Can you provide them? Yes, I'll gather what I can. Kevin promised, but I have a question for you. What is that? Lucy inquired. Were you aware of Lily's affair with Greg? Kevin queried. I had my suspicions. There were whispers, but nothing concrete. Lucy admitted. We tend not to gossip about personal matters in the office. I understand, Kevin acknowledged. Well, that's all for now. I'll be in touch. Thank you, Lucy responded. And again, my condolences that evening, while watching television with Krista News Rep about the crash aired. It stated that the plane's final moments were captured by a crew member aboard a cargo airliner only a couple of miles from the crash site. The TV station aired an amateur video showing the plane rapidly descending. Nose first, the plane appeared to disintegrate upon impact. With the water, the report conveyed, the cargo ship altered its course to aid in the search for survivors while they retrieved several bodies from the water. Unfortunately, there were no survivors. Additionally, they recovered a significant amount of luggage, which included belongings belonging to Lily and Greg. However, their bodies were not among those recovered. In the following months, Kevin and Christy experienced a whirlwind of activity. Christy moved in with Kevin and sold her own house. Kevin had to handle Lily's apartment, which held nothing of value to him. Consequently, he donated everything to Goodwill, which gladly accepted it. Later, he sold the apartment, recouping Lily's original investment. Both Kevin and Chris received a $500,000 insurance payout from Acme Real Estate for the loss of their spouses. They promptly began tracing any remnants of Lily from their lives. They discarded photos, stowed away, knickknacks, and replaced furniture. Especially the Bed family members took what they wanted, and the rest, including 2 cars, was either sold, donated, or scrapped. Kevin also navigated the complexities of closing Lily's bank account after months of paperwork. Kevin received a check for approximately $250,000. Lawyers approached Kevin and Christy seeking to profit from the accident. Further investigation revealed that the crew misinterpreted onboard computer warnings and made incorrect decisions. The plane descended at a rate of about 12,000 ft per minute, crashing into the water at roughly 135 mph, a journey lasting just over 3 minutes. Kevin imagined Lily's last moments, some spent on the phone with him, as harrowing. He believed her final act was one of regret, realizing she was hurtling towards her demise with no chance of escape. Nevertheless, Kevin deemed it too little too late. Fortunately, the airline reached a settlement with all affected families, compensating each passenger with just over $175,000. Kevin and Christy received a total of over $1.6 million. After accounting for taxes, they still had a substantial sum. Since neither Lily's nor Greg's remains were recovered, no funeral took place. However, Kevin and Christy organized memorial services mainly for their families. They didn't shed tears for their deceased spouses. 3 months into her tenure, Christy left her job to move in permanently with Kevin. By then they were deeply in love. One evening, while dining at a local Texas roadhouse, Kevin proposed to Christy on one knee. She joyfully accepted, eliciting applause from nearby patrons. "It's high time you made an honest woman out of me," she whispered to him. "Why?" he asked. "Because you're going to a father," she revealed, overwhelmed with joy. Kevin showered her with kisses. "I love you more than anything," he expressed. "And I love you even more," she reciprocated. "Just one request." "What is it?" he inquired. "Please don't ask me to fly anywhere," she implored. Laughing, Kevin embraced her tightly. "Don't worry, my dear," he comforted her. "Thank you for listening. Now for the second story. Please enjoy. I got the worst shock of my life when I rang the bell after a crazy bachelor celebration he had prepared. Revenge. Safe to say guys had the most fragile egos, any tiny bruises, and they locked in. My lover had gotten revenge on me after I had ignored his warnings and gone for a wild bachelor celebration with my pals, and they were his buddies too. He just couldn't take that. They were riding him against the way I was, and he left the party before it was over. Heck, this is going to be one hell of a story, and I don't even know why I feel the need to come on here and expose what has been the most embarrassing times of my life. I'll scratch that. I know why I came on this platform. It is to say that males have the most delicate egos, and now I was suffering from it because of this man. My name is irrelevant in this post, and so is my ex's. So I'll skip that. I just couldn't believe that he had done this to me, all because of some talk that he hadn't even confirmed. Yes, this all started with side comments from our friends, and I had no idea they were planting seeds of doubt in his mind by ignoring every warning he had provided me. It undoubtedly prompted him to go out to derail my plans. I told him everything I had discussed, my aims and dreams with this man. What had he gone on to do? He had reduced them before my eyes. I needed valid validation, and he was my path to it, and he ruined it. Since he didn't bother to investigate if the reports were accurate or not, he had gone ahead and ruined my relationship with my family, as well as doing the most unexpected thing I could have imagined, setting me up in front of them. I trusted thee, and he messed me up. This is why you should avoid trusting anyone. And I would tell you the entire narrative of how this all started, including how my lover planned revenge on me when I went against him and went wild at a bachelor party. Our mutual friend's bachelor party. So my buddy was getting married and had decided to throw her bridal shower at a strip club to do wick before she formally tied the knot, while her husband-to-be, who was my boyfriend's friend, had decided to host his bachelor party at another club. My boyfriend had not wanted to go. he had opted to stay at home and only attend the wedding. I told him I was going without him, and he had warned me that if I went against his wishes, he would make sure I didn't have a place to return to. I assumed he was exaggerating. I assumed he had been messing with me. I had already been buzzed for the night, so I was eager to have some fun with my girls, as we hadn't had one in a long time, due to varying schedules at work and school. So this was our sole chance to hang out and do crazy things, and I wasn't going to let my downer of a guy ruin it. For me, I dismissed it as an empty threat and went about my night. I even kissed him goodbye before going over to one of my girlfriend's friend's house, where we would get ready and then head over to the club. I'd even texted him on the way, but he hadn't responded to any of the texts I'd received before arriving at the club, and the party kicked up when my friend, who was getting married, showed up. We danced, and before we knew it, her husband's bachelor celebration and the party had become one. Her spouse had refused to allow her attend the celebration. Without him, it was cute how quickly they merged into each other, yet everyone was booing them, and my boyfriend had entered the party, and I had tried to bring him to the dance floor with me, but he refused to go. I took to the platform, and my friend, whom I'll call Frank, though that is not his true name, joined me. All of the allegations were predicated on rumors that my lover believed without first consulting me. Yes, my partner was insecure about Frank, and as a result, he ended our relationship. He had damaged my life by spreading false stories about my and Frank's relationship. My buddies started it because they expected Frank and I to end up together, so they taunted my boyfriend about it, and he gave up like a coward. Let me correct that. Like the deceitful and clever coward that he was, I danced with Frank at the celebration, and my friends cheered me on. I was too out of it to hear what my pals were saying when I returned to grab a drink and gather my breath. I found my partner had left the bachelor celebration. No one had seen him leave, and the alcoholic haze lifted from my eyes. I couldn't believe he left with me. No one was returning home at the time, so I had to take a taxi. I was enraged because he had departed without me. When I came home and stepped out of the Uber, the driver stopped me and informed me that my card payment had not been processed, and that was not doable. My guy covered all of our miscellaneous expenses, such as Uber, Netflix, and Spotify. So I was perplexed as to why his card wasn't processing. I got into a fight with the driver, which is when I spotted my baggage outside my bags. I forgot about the driver and ran to the door, ringing the bell, and my lover opened it. Contempt showing in his eyes, he then declared we were finished and slammed the door in my face. There's no explanation whatsoever. I had no idea what cruel retaliation he had in store for me. As a result of that minor deed, I repeatedly knocked on the door, thinking that the noise would compel him to come out and explain what he meant. My knocking, however, just awoke the neighbors, who began peering out their doors. We resided in an apartment, and my pounding attracted unwanted attention. I was really devastated about what had happened, and the Uber driver, who had to call the cops on me because I refused to pay him, and I spent the night in jail, and I assumed this was going to be the worst of my issues, thanks to the Uber driver and my nosy neighbors who reported my hammering. I didn't have the money to bail myself out. My lover had cut off my access to everything. Even money. I called him, but he had blocked my number, so I couldn't contact him. All of my pals were either too hungover to come bail me out or transfer the money from my bail to me. I'd even tried calling them, but they were talking nonsense, so I had to spend the night in the cell. What is my family? You could ask. I didn't want them to know I'd gotten my ass into trouble. I hadn't realized how far my partner was willing to go. I even had a fleeting impression that he was still joking, and what had just occurred had been a mishap that could be corrected. I assumed such was the case, so I willingly slept in the cell, believing that when I returned to my boyfriend's house tomorrow, everything would be forgiven. I got slapped in the face when I went back. My boyfriend moved in one night, It was not even a whole night. It seemed as if he had planned everything since the beginning of time. This was when I had to go back and figure out what had transpired to lead up to this. I gathered my belongings, which had been left outside, and proceeded to my girlfriend's place. This was when I learned that my partner had been looking strange throughout the party, but I had been too inebriated to notice. Apparently they had been riding him hard while I was dancing with Frank. I had become enraged because they had ruined everything for me. When I tried to phone my lover, it was diverted to another number. It was almost time for us to properly meet my grandfather so that I could receive my inheritance. This was the main reason for our connection. While not significant, it was a small reason that we were both aware of my grandfather had an inheritance for me because I was his only grandchild, and he required me to prove that I was legally engaged to be married before he could transfer my trust fund to me. If I couldn't prove that I had someone I wanted to settle down with, he was going to give the money to his bimbo wife, and I'd sooner die than let him do that. The plan was straightforward. I liked my boyfriend, but I had no intention of marrying him. I had included him in the idea, and he agreed. We would execute a false engagement and arrange our wedding as usual. Well, at least until my grandfather released the funds. My grandfather did not trust my father because he squandered the first part of his money before dying, and my mother passed away while giving birth to me. My granddad reared me by himself. He had told me how much he disliked lack of commitment and people who did not keep their promises. He had raised me to keep my word, bless his heart. And I'm not kidding you. I had been raised correctly until I was exposed to life outside of my grandfather's walls, at which point I became immersed in lies. My boyfriend and I were supposed to go meet him and tell him about our fake engagement so he could release the money and I could finally launch my fashion brand and do so many other things with my $30 million trust. Don't ask me what my grandfather did to have so much money. I have no idea. He never gave me any of it if he didn't see it as important. I didn't like it at all. So I wanted to get it from him before he died, and his sneaky wife, who expected me to call her grandmother, would get to keep everything. I was not going to let that happen, or my parents, whoever they were, would roll over in their grave. I had no idea my boyfriend was planning to go meet my grandfather and expose me until it happened. Right in front of my eyes, I was still trying to reach him when he showed up at my house 3 days after we broke up and followed my grandfather to his office. I tried to talk to him, but he had not responded and was with my grandfather's wife. He introduced himself as his lawyer, who was all glow and bubbles, and introduced him to my grandfather. I was stunned. My mouth ached at the dining table. He had literally slapped me in the face with that betrayal. I am not kidding you. He had followed my grandfather into his office and informed him of my intention to take my inheritance money, and he would have been unconcerned and would have ended our relationship after giving him a percentage. My grandfather's voice rang out for me from his office, and I knew I was doomed. My boyfriend agreed to help with my plans. My grandfather looked at me as if he couldn't believe who was standing before him. This was someone who had raised me, and he treated me as if I were a stranger. Despite the fact that he had not raised me as a result, I was removed from his will. I was kneeling, begging and crying, but my grandfather ordered me out of his house, saying he never wanted to see my face again. My boyfriend smirked at me. Could you imagine that the bastard knew exactly what he was doing and had set me up? I couldn't believe he had hit out at me like that. I couldn't even ask him what I'd done to him because we were in front of my grandfather. My boyfriend had done his worst. I needed money from my grandfather to start out on my own. I didn't want to be bound by my grandfather's stifling rules about marriage and finding a man. This was the reason I had done this in the first place. This was why I devised this elaborate plan, and my boyfriend had gone to ruin it, because I had danced with another guy at the nightclub, A guy who should have given him no reason to worry to say I was outraged was an understatement. I was kicked out of my apartment because it belonged to my grandfather. I was also asked to leave my job because I had spent my entire life backpedaling on my grandfather, and now he had let me go. I do not know what to do. I don't know why my boyfriend would have done this to me. I attempted to contact him to ask what I had done wrong and why he had succumbed to rumors. I even texted his friends who were mutual friends with me, but he cut them off. I'm genuinely struggling to comprehend why this has happened, and at the same time, I'm upset as hell because I basically have to start my life over again, and there's no way of knowing because he wouldn't talk to me. Update IR Redditors. This is a month later. Update. I've been seeing the good comments on this post suggesting my ex-boyfriend had done me dirty. If you're new to my story, my boyfriend had damaged me because he heard stories during one wild bachelor night that I was sleeping around with a guy that was our common buddy. I returned home and discovered my bags outside, and as retribution, my ex-boyfriend had told my grandfather that I was trying to con him and pretend we were married so I could obtain my inheritance. He had my grandfather cut all links with me and make me start life from scratch. I've obtained a job, but it's hard meeting up. I acquired a place in a studio room with a stranger, and I had used my final money to buy it since I couldn't sleep on the floors of train stations. How the powerful had fallen, I recall, when I always had money in my account. Those accounts had been stopped quick. The actual question would be, had I seen my ex-boyfriend again after the whole event? And he left me hanging. I did. This was what I came to update you people on, and I realized I didn't even talk about how my relationship was with my now former lover, and if we ever had troubles that could lead to him, assuming I was cheating on him. Before I go into the details of my past relationship, I'll give you an update. I saw my ex-boyfriend again after he had blocked me and avoided me. Like the plague, when he came to get coffee at the Starbucks location where I worked, I dropped his coffee and we made a scene which resulted in me being hauled outside and suspended for a week for causing a disturbance in the shop. I waited for him until he finished drinking his coffee. I confronted him and began shouting, furious that he had ruined my life. He then told me that he knew I was sleeping with Frank behind his back and requested me to confirm or deny it. When I confronted him outside the house, I was startled to learn that he thought that of me. I told him that he was acting on rumors and that those rumors had damaged my life. He called me out on my lie and showed me his phone, which contained a photo of me entering a hotel with Frank holding my hand that did not confirm or contradict anything. I told him it was a harmless photo, and he went on to make inferences based on that and what he had heard from my pals. I was on the verge of tears when he showed me another image of me and Frank kissing outside Frank's house. Well, I haven't been very honest with you guys, and I can tell how I cheated on my boyfriend with Frank. I can actually explain. I'm 24 years old. I met my ex-boyfriend in college 2 years ago. We had studied the same major, so he was my study companion. He was also quite brilliant, and I could count on him for academic assistance, so he was my go-to person for all things college. I never thought we'd date. I only saw him as a friend who could help me. We were cool. I had a thing for Frank. Then he was finished with school, but then my grandfather opposed our connection. I'm not sure what made him detest Frank so much, but he warned me that if I was caught dating him, I'd lose my fortune. This is when I discovered that I had an inheritance to begin with, an inheritance I was meant to receive once I had found and settled down with someone to start a family. My grandfather was a conventional family man who remarried after my grandmother died. I don't want to bore you with the intricacies of my family history, but I had done something dreadful. I had seen the legacy my grandfather had planned for me, and I began plotting since I was tired of living by my grandfather's strict rules. I saw a way out, enter into a stable relationship for 2 years, then propose marriage to show my grandfather that I was ready to create a family, and after he successfully transferred the estate to me, I would end our connection and cut all ties with my grandfather. That had been the plan, and it was stupid and selfish. And it's dawning on me that my life has been completely damaged by my decisions and actions. LOL, it's like I'm exposing myself on this platform, but I don't have someone to talk to, and I saw the favorable feedback and assumed you would all understand. I had wanted to use Frank rather than my ex-boyfriend. I didn't want to ruin our friendship, but my grandfather despised Frank while I was crushing on him, so I had to use my ex-boyfriend as a scapegoat, start a relationship with him, and then I'd convince him to propose, then take my grandfather's inheritance, break it up, and really pursue Frank, because that was the love of my life. I loved Frank, but I couldn't be with him for the reasons I mentioned before. So I devised that plan, and everything was going well. I asked my ex-boyfriend out, and he accepted my proposal. We started dating, and everything was fine. I knew what my end goal was, so I didn't have strong feelings for him. I hadn't told him my plans. At first he found out when I returned home one drunken night, and I was so drunk that I couldn't see straight, telling him that I had planned to use him to steal my grandfather's inheritance and start my life without his rules. I was able to persuade him. Despite his initial opposition, fortunately, I had not told him that I intended to use him and then dump him later. I just said that we were going to rush the proposal and then lie to my grandfather about it. I'm not sure what motivated me to devise such a plan throughout our relationship. I was falling for him a little. He was caring and kind, and he always asked if I was all right. I was even considering seeing how far the relationship would go and possibly abandoning my plan. But Frank returned to my life after my grandfather forced me to leave him. Frank had texted me that he wanted to meet up and catch up, and I swear I was not going to cheat on my ex-boyfriend. I had never intended to cheat. I had seen Frank, and we had chatted, laughed, and caught up. Then I got up, however. Visiting him became a daily occurrence, and I was hooked. I began sneaking out of the house when my ex-boyfriend was present, and when he hadn't left, I pretended to be going to see a friend, but I was actually going to see Frank. It was horrible, and the most wicked thing I had ever done. I see it now. Frank had always been my first love, before I left for college, and he was finally showing signs of returning to love. At that point, I felt like a silly little girl with a crush. Yes, I understand. I had a boyfriend. I was not in the proper frame of mind. I began sleeping with him after the third time we caught up, but I thought I was cautious around my ex-boyfriend. I always tried to cover my tracks and had an alibi. Also, one of my friends, this is how my friends began to spread the rumor that I was having an affair with Frank. I had no idea they were saying this behind my back. They were partially to blame for my problems above and beyond my obsession with Frank. I wanted my inheritance, so I was not going to do anything that could be discovered to avoid a confrontation. I did not even tell Frank I had a boyfriend at the time. He found out after the party that had ruined everything. I had become so inebriated that I had no idea when I began grinding down on Frank at the party in front of my boyfriend. In my defense, I had asked my ex to dance with me, but he declined. I believe he had already confirmed rumors of my cheating. Then I feel so ashamed that I am exposing my evil actions, and I am now reaping the dire consequences. My entire plan had been shattered. Frank abandoned me after discovering I had a boyfriend and was cheating on him. He had stated that he couldn't do that to his fellow man. I had questioned my ex-boyfriend how he had discovered I was cheating. He claimed he followed me to my affair's house after I lied to him that I was going to see a friend. Apparently he was upset by my constant desire to spend out with my pals, and he just wanted to see what was so amazing. Then he learned who the friend was. I didn't even bother asking him how he obtained the photo evidence of my adultery. Well, I couldn't, because he had gone away, saying he couldn't stand to see my face 1 second more over the last month. I've considered suicide as a result of what I did. My grandfather has no plans to give me anything. Finding a work is proving extremely challenging. I'm almost out of savings. I had even sold my pricey goods to cover basic expenses. Nonetheless, the task is becoming more difficult. I need help on how to convince my grandfather to forgive me. I'm completely miserable. Thank you for taking the time to hear today's story. If you enjoyed this essay, please like it and subscribe if you have not already. If you have a story to tell about yourself or someone else's situation, please email me.